Truth to Power that's coming on right now, Joe Morrissey. I can tell you that if Joe gets in a runoff in Richmond with any of these candidates, I mean, the whole establishment around Virginia is going to go nuts and try to beat him. But I think he's going to win on the first ballot. And we have him with us right now, Joe Morrissey, running for mayor of Richmond. Joe, welcome.
Good morning, John. Good to be with you.
Joe, you know, when you're challenging like Trump is, and I'm not comparing the two of you ideologically, I'm comparing the basis of your support, which is outside of the traditional elite power structures, okay? Both yourself and Trump are not beholden to anybody financially. No big donors, no PACs, no Wall Street, no bankers, no developers. You're for the people. Here's the problem. If you get into this runoff, Joe, the amount of money that is going to come down against you is going to be in the, I believe, tens of millions of dollars in this runoff because they can't control you. The elite cabal that runs Richmond and runs Virginia, the elitists, they can't control you like they control these other candidates with their checkbook because you're not beholden to them. So that, to me, that's your risk in this race. How do you overcome that?
Well, first of all, I believe it's a bit of an advantage, the situation that I'm in right now. And let me be specific. We are now 9 months into the campaign beginning in January. Do you know how many fundraisers, how many solicitations I've put out? 0. I've raised about, I'll report another about 70,000 coming up today, but people have made contributions. It's really liberating not to be beholden to any groups, particularly some of those elitist Democrats that we're talking about. But what's so funny about this is the following. I am not relying on traditional sources of revenue to spark my campaign or move it. Not unions, not Governor McAuliffe, not the traditional Dems, but I'm ending up leading the race by a wide margin. So I'm not really concerned about these elitist Democrats that you refer to. I mean, and I say this respectfully, but big deal. Here's what's going on. They're worried about the following. In 2017, McAuliffe will end his administration. All of those people that are political appointees that went into that administration are leaving and exiting because there's a new gubernatorial administration. Where do these political opportunists go? With LeVar Stoney, you move from the state of Virginia, where you're a political appointee, to the city of Richmond, where you're a political appointee. And that's the problem. We're not putting people in jobs there that because of their skill set, but only because of who they know. So, you know, I'm not that worried about all the money that's coming down. Look at what happened. After 9 months, LeVar was the leader in money raised. Far and away outdistanced everybody.
Right.
10-1. And where was he? In 5th place with 7 points. How'd that work out for you, LeVar?
Well, not very good because, look, we're in an environment where, you know, you can't buy love and you can't buy hate. I mean, now, look, everybody expects that LeVar is going to go and dump a bunch of negative ads on you in the final month. I mean, we look at the money he's got. But look, you know, Joe, here's the thing. Negative ads, they have diminishing returns. We saw it. 2 races. I'm just going to give it right up front real fast. Biggest example recently, Hampton Roads, Senate District 7. Gary McCollum doubled down on negative ads. He ran so many negative ads against Frank Wagner. At the end, they backfired. Wagner started to go up in the polls. People get sick of it. They're just done with that. So they have diminishing returns.
A Democratic congressman in Northern Virginia called, who was, many of you remember, former Lieutenant Governor Don Beyer that ran for Congress and won. And he called all that negative advertising white noise. In other words, you begin to just distance yourself from it. Do you remember Mr. McAuliffe did the same thing with Dan Gecker, ran $2 million of negative advertising against Glenn Studevant, who won? Yep. Glenn Studevant. So, you know, I mean, fine. Do what you want. Here's how I respond. I've never attacked opponents with negative advertising. I don't intend to do it this time. At the same time, I'm not going to simply turn the other cheek. If people want to take shots at my family, then we'll certainly remind the public of their various picadillos as well. But don't take a shot at my family and expect me to roll over.
Well, Joe, you have to respond, and I'm glad you're saying that because, I mean, it's one thing to say, look, I'm going to stay positive. I'm not going to attack people. I'm not going to run negative ads. But you also have to respond. And when you're hit negatively, you got to be able to respond back to that and fight back because we've seen plenty of examples in history, starting back to the Dukakis campaign in 88, the John Kerry campaign with the Swift boat, Romney in 2012. You got to be able to respond, and I think you're prepared to do that. But look, I mean, you look at the...
Let me just address that. I am. One of my opponents, who knows exactly what I'm talking about, had a series of indiscretions in Wisconsin and in his personal life. And I am not going to... There's an old adage that my mother said, people in glass houses should not throw stones. And I'm a seasoned politician who has tough skin. I understand the rough and tumble of politics. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. But we'll see how that unfolds, John, won't we?
Yes, I think we look forward to the last, 60 days here of this Richmond campaign for mayor starting the heating up. We're with Joe Morrissey. He's the leading candidate right now for mayor. By the way, we predicted this back over the summer. Once again, everybody made fun of me. Once again, I'm going to be right. Joe, I want to get to a couple of the top issues. One is back to kind of the establishment, but LeVar Stoney getting the official backing of the Richmond Democratic Committee. What did you make of that?
Very little. The Richmond City Democratic Committee was stacked with McAuliffe acolytes that they put on there specifically to vote for the endorsement process. In fact, it was really terribly unfair to two of my opponents, Jonathan Belials, Michelle Mosby. They've served on city council. They've served in elected Democratic politics, and they had a city council meeting. They didn't even interview them. They interviewed nobody. And they were on a city council meeting and couldn't even attend. And it was everybody, all the seven candidates said it's farcical. And it means, it means absolutely nothing. You've got a group of people that came in, signed on to become a city Democratic Committee member who'd never been there before and endorsed Mr. Stoney. It meant very little. And it was the first endorsement process where I've ever seen. I mean, you see REA, VEA, you see folks interviewing Fraternal Order Police, Fire Department. They interview candidates and make an endorsement. They didn't even have an endorsement process, so it's kind of silly.
Okay, so that doesn't matter. Let's get to education. In the Christopher Newport University poll that came out, over 80% of those surveyed in Richmond said number one issue is the failing educational system in Richmond. Now, another educational report came out. Schools in Virginia as a whole go up. Schools in Richmond as a whole go down again. So more schools in Richmond, non-accredited, counter trend to Virginia. Got a real problem here. Look, if you can't get your kids a decent education, you're locked into poverty for life. Nobody knows that better than Joe Morrissey. LeVar Stoney knows that also, based on the background that he has, father in jail and all that, so in prison. So we had LeVar on the other day. We asked him about his education plan. He got the endorsement of, I guess, the educational bureaucrats in there, whatever.
The union. The union.
The
union.
You know
how that works. McAuliffe calls up and says, listen, we're in bed together. You will endorse LeVar Stoney. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I'll do that. And I listened to Mr. Stoney's interview, and I heard him say three times, I've got a 10-point program. Here's his first 3 points. Number one, poverty is the root cause of public school problems, and we need to concentrate on a systemic cause of poverty. Point one. Really? That's your solution, is to recite a fact. Number two, of his 10-point program, principals play a critical role in establishing public teacher development or positive teacher development. Really? Thank you for that fact. His third point on his 10-point program that he rolled out, we have a public relations problem. We need a leader inside of City Hall championing the good good work that teachers and students are doing. We need to celebrate success. Really, LeVar? That's your point? And then I heard you ask a really important question. You said, but what about Joe? He said, well, he doesn't have a 10-point program. Well, here's what I've said for 9 months. I've promoted the following, okay? I said, let's adopt the HUD Good Neighbor Next Door program, where HUD pays a teacher who moves into an urban situation. They pay half their mortgage for the first 3 years if they move into the city and teach in an urban school. They do it for first responders and teachers. Let's do that in Richmond. That's a suggestion. Number two, do vision screening for pre-K through third grade of those students, the ones that are in the back, can't see and are labeled challenged or ADD. Oh, but not because they are, but because they can't see. Here's a one. School uniforms. Let's have a model school or schools that adopt school uniforms. They do that in public schools in Europe and Australia. It takes the onus of parents trying to compete against other parents in dressing their kids. How about this? One school, a model school, year-round. Because kids tend to fall off during the summer when they don't get, and it takes a while to get back into the rigor of learning. Have a model school go year-round. Have mandated summer school for those students that get a C- or less. Classroom coaching. There's an enormous cadre of retired professionals who are desirous of giving back. Bring them into the school system. An after-school reading academy. I've actually given ideas. Mr. Stoney gave a college, thesis on what that did not promote anything. It simply recited facts. It was kind of juvenile.
Okay, so I've got a minute. Charter schools. How do you stand, and are you going to do anything about it?
I support charter schools. Was one of the only lone Democrat in the General Assembly that supported the Patrick Henry School of Science and Arts. I was there when McDonald rolled that out. Was the only Democrat that was there because I realized that it works. LeVar said we don't have charter schools in Richmond. We have 3 charter schools: Metropolitan Preparatory Academy, Patrick Henry, and Richmond Career Education. Let me just say this, and I think this puts it well. Mr. Stoney is a nice young man, but he says, I want to be the education mayor. You know what, John? I want to be the quarterback for the Washington Redskins. The problem is you have to have a skill set. I have taught law school in 2 different continents. I've taught high school. I served on the education committee of the House of Delegates for almost a decade. I have a skill set. LeVar has 0 skill set. That's the difference.
All right.
One's got experience, one doesn't.
I'm out of time. Look, I'm going to come up there, and we're going to do our show for 2 days in Richmond and see what the voters say. Joe, thanks for being with us. Want more information, go to electjoemorrissey.com, electjoemorrissey.com.